I'll take you through the journey of this workshop once more, right? And there are certain things which, because in the course of discussion we were going, some things I have skipped over, which I can now complete that also in this session. Right? So first, go to the go to that. Let's go to the background and everything. Let's start from the beginning, right? So where does this Jivan Vidya come from? That you also need to know, right? So Jivan Vidya is a proposal of living in harmony with human and human nature relationships, and thus realizing happiness and peace. Jivan Vidya is a proposal for study of humans and preservation of humanness, presented for all humankind to live with understanding. So, main thing is study of humanness and preservation of humanness. Study of humans and preservation of or protection of humanness in us. I, Ashok Gopala, present this proposal to you as a student of Jivan Vidya. I am responsible for this content of this presentation and for this presentation, which is how I have interpreted Jivan Vidya. So this is my interpretation of Jivan Vidya. So any shortcomings in this proposal which I am presenting to you might be because of my understanding. In my opinion, this proposal in itself, when I am studying it, is complete in itself, but there can be still be shortcomings in my presentation. Next. So what is it? It is based on a philosophy called Madhyast Darshan. Darshan in Hindi means philosophy. So Madhyast means mediation, right? So a mediating philosophy, which basically talks, the essence of which is to come into balance, come into harmony, right? So Jivan Vidya based on Madhyast Darshan is a new philosophy whose original propounder is Shri A. Nagaraj, who lived from 1920 to 2016, and the latter part of his life, from age 30 onwards, he lived in Amarkantak. It is a proposal for harmonious thinking, it is a proposal for harmonious behavior, it is a proposal for harmonious work, and it is a proposal for education through purposeful reasoning. So, purposeful logic or purposeful reasoning. So, what is the purpose? And building the logic for it, right? Next. So, it is not a sect or commune. Okay, there is no central organization in this. There is nothing like you have to do this every day or do that everything. It's your decision how you want to engage with this, in what form, right? There are no rituals in it. Okay, so it is not based on any prevalent religion, spiritual schools, philosophy, or ideology. What we basically mean from this is that to understand this, you don't need to have studied any of these. If you have studied, it might help, it might not help, but it is not an essential thing. That is what is meant. It is not for making money or influencing people for fame, right? So this is not for building a fan club for myself, like I am presenting here, and it is not meant for making money. So this is presented as a gift to the society, right? No, last point again. All Jivan Vidya workshops are offered as a gift to the society, right? Yeah. So we talked about this. All nature except humans exists in spontaneous systems driven by collaboration. This is coexistence. System is equal to existing and functioning by natural laws, regulation, balance. Okay. Next. Humans, individuals, families, society, tradition are also an integral part of nature, and the opportunity and resources to live in this harmonious system is available to them, to us. All human achievements are a result of combined effort, collaboration, being useful, complementary to one's surroundings. Right? Just see, we don't need to go into the collaboration slides anymore. Right? Ignorance is the only cause of lack of cooperation, which in some forms is also exploitation by humans. Exploitation is giving less while taking more within transactions. Right? And this is the mechanism we have built our whole all our structures, human structures, right? Exploitation. Okay. Whereas human nature is humanness. Humanness is giving more and taking less. That can only happen when you have resolution and prosperity. Without that, you can't live in humanness. Okay. Yeah. The only way for humans to utilize their available resources appropriately is by independent and responsible decision making. For this, you need to be knowledgeable so that you take the decision in the right context, right? And then fulfill them with responsibly. For this, study of coexistence is essential. The clear conceptualization of coexistence itself is a true understanding. Living in accordance with such understanding is orderly living. Living in, by, and for existential order or coexistence is happiness. Okay. Now, these slides will make sense to you. Next. So, then we talked about, when I started with the 3 fundamental questions and things like that. Now I want to go to a little background of this. So, overview of human journey, right? So, traditional schools of thought, materialism and idealism. The matter is ultimate reality, material activity is existence, mutual struggle is the fundamental causality, right? Idealism, God is the ultimate reality, God's creation is existence, divine will is the fundamental causality. This defines these two. Okay, next. This we have.
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
We talked about this exploitation.
Yeah.
So exploitation can be in many forms. For example, if I am a employer and I don't have any motivation to change my exploitative behavior, so even after the knowledge, if I decide to change my behavior, then I know that how do I put it? It will not work out favorably for me. So there will be loss of control and there will be loss of power. So what is the motivation for the exploitator if he is in a power position? Say for example, employer.
We all are in some position of power. None of us are without power. We are in a hierarchical system where there is somebody above in more than us in power and somebody less than us in power, right? So we can exert our power on people less than us in the structure, and people above us exert some power on us. So there is nobody without power. So what will happen with you? So when you understand, what happens with us is we start basing our decisions on the new paradigm, and that is what that is what is going to motivate us. Right now, when you're thinking the power is what will give me pleasure, or that will give me control, that will give me happiness, then you understand that when you do power dynamics, you are isolated, you're alone, and happiness comes from relationships. So you have to nurture relationships. Relationships can't be nurtured through power dynamics. If you do fear and greed in your interactions, which is power dynamics, then people will move away from you. Like for example, in parenting, if you use fear and greed, your child will move away from you. So you have to find a ground of friendliness with that child, a ground for communication with that child. Right? So you have to choose. And if you're studying it, then you start slowly becoming aware that yes, living in harmony in relationships is the source for happiness, not controlling people. Okay.
I'm not sure if this has been addressed already, but so we are attributing exploitation, all forms of exploitation, to lack of awareness. Uh, but so that implies that if someone, I mean, would that mean that if someone is aware, like they had a realized self, they can never exploit? Would that be a direct implication?
Yes, yes. They will be, least they will be generous.
But
More than that, they can be kind, benevolent, and compassionate. Yeah, please.
so I was thinking, how will we verify this statement, right? But it sounds like a self-evident statement. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't. You can't provide a fact which will disverify that. Because if I say that there is someone, you'll say that person is unaware.
No, I'll give an example of generosity. No,
Okay.
that will show you. Like when you're parenting, for example, right? When you are in a relationship and living in that relationship, like for example, a parent and child relationship. So there are many parents here. You can ask them or your friends or anybody. When you have the child in your arms for the first time and you start looking after the child, is there any sense of that this child is going to give me something back? Right? And what is your conduct with that child? What all can I give to this child? I can give it physical security, emotional security, right? So that is where you start from. When the child starts exerting individuality, it comes to this sense of self and wants to take its own decision, that's when, because we do not know how to deal, that's when the conflicts start. Right? And still, you'll find a lot of parents trying to give.
So would that mean that if someone knew how to deal with that,
Yeah.
there is no likelihood or no chance that that person would still want to exert power or control over that child?
What's the need? For what?
I don't know, this will to power or will to control someone, I don't know.
So that's what we're examining, our underlying desires. What is it? That's what we went through. So we want to be happy. If controlling people gave us happiness, then all the people having power would be very happy people. We can see in our families, we can see in our communities, we can see in our state, nation, everywhere. Are they people who are happy, or are they people isolated, and that isolation is further causing them to become more uh, angry and upset and more power controlling person, like kind of a thing, distorted personalities.
Yeah, I think so. Basing off of that, I kind of somewhere agree that being in power would never give you a deep sense of contentment or happiness, or something. But my question, I think, converges with Gunjan here is that then how do we convince that person that okay, what you're doing, you think you are being happy or whatever you think you are being, but I mean, let's just kind of agree that you're not happy. But how do we convince them of that, right? Because
You want to say something? Yeah.
I think that's a really good question, and I think the answer that we're providing is one way of looking at it. But I feel the question, where is this tendency of power, control, and exploitation coming from, cannot be answered fully by just by saying that it doesn't lead to happiness anyway. Because even if it doesn't lead to happiness, what if it's just a tendency that we can't avoid? So I think the real question becomes, where is this rooted? Why do we end up exploiting? Why do we strive for power and control over others? And if that question gets answered, and if there's an alternate solution to that fundamental requirement, then that solution becomes the alternate away from exploitation, power, and control. And I think the answer to that is that exploitation in terms of material and even human exploitation, I think, is from a sense of me requiring something that I cannot get from anything except by exploiting this person or some resource, and which means it's an unfair that the only way to go about getting this requirement that I have is this unfair means of taking it. And so then the question becomes, okay, so what need is it that I'm exploiting for, which would be different in different circumstances. So someone might be doing it for, say, money. Someone might be doing it for sense of validation and confidence, whatever. We'll have to see, look at that need that they're trying to fulfill and just feel that it can only be taken by force. And then show the alternative. See, this is what you want actually. You think you'll get it from here, but actually you can get it from here also. And show the reasoning for that. And for power and control, I think that is rooted in the human nature of, freedom and independence. And we're entities that see things, and so we're free and have the power to act according to our free creativity. So it is our need to have things in control, and in control according to how we see them, even if it's a flawed way of seeing. We don't want others to be intruding in on our perspectives and how we look at the world and telling us what to do. And since there's all these beliefs, there's no common consensus on what the world is like. It's either my way or someone else's way. And so we feel unless I exert power and my vision over others, others will impose theirs on mine. And so that's the only way to go about it. So it's either my way or the other way. Either exploit or get exploited, either control or get controlled. And we all want to be independent. I think that's the fundamental need there. So if you can see the way an option for being independent without having to, submit to someone else's power, then you won't feel the need to control others either.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah,
But does it connect with you?
I think so. So the first part of Dishta's answer about locating that need into something more deeper and root, ki why is it at all that it is arising, and that probably giving us a solution. Maybe I think that related with me. And I think the second part about making the other person realize that okay, maybe this is a better way of existing and so on and so forth. But I'm still like unsure of. So for example, if there's someone who's, let's say, less confident or insecure about themselves, okay, and the moment you tell them that this is the alternative way of being or something, the first thing that I would expect from that person is a backlash. That why are you telling me this? Because they're underconfident about themselves.
Right.
So, that's just one example. We can think of other examples also why someone would not want anyone else to tell them so I think the question that I'm stuck at is how do you convince someone that there's an alternative way of being, or which doesn't involve you exploiting someone, and you realizing that you were exploiting someone also.
So first of all, like I've said this earlier, do you want to say something in this? Okay. So there is no convincing the other. First, let's rule that out. That's not even an option. You can't convince anyone. Nobody can convince you. You can't convince anyone else. Right? Now we want to live together. Right? And that this living together is important. When we live together with each other, people we trust will listen to them. Especially when they speak in a manner or present things in a manner which sounds more like a proposal than imposition. Right? This is what happens with you, happens with me, happens with everyone. So, first we have to build trust, and then we have to give proposals. Right? That is the way of going forward. This will not work immediately or for a long time. What do we do in the meantime? How do you build the trust? First, respecting the person as it is. And find a way of association with this person, because we're not talking about relationship within our people, right? Within our family or thing. Respecting this person's personality, this person's abilities are this is what his likes and dislikes are, this is how he behaves, this is how he works. And for me to associate with this person, I have to come close in this area, I can come in close in this area, and I have to make some distance in this area. So you have to discover your coordinated motion with that person without trying to change anything about that. First, that is the point. Once you start doing that, then there is a build of trust. Then we can use the proposals. See, we are doing this, which is fine, but we can do this even in a better way, like this. And if the person is receptive, might accept it. Right? First, the thing which communicates is, I am with you. I think of you as my own, therefore I am with you. That is very important. Without that trust, proposals are meaningless. Yes, go on.
So if we go back to the human values, essentially the person you're trying to convince in a way is someone you're trying to actually educate, right? In this is your need and this is how you can actually fulfill it. So it's a process of education that you're trying to embark on. And the process of education requires either kindness or benevolence, involves either kindness, benevolence or compassion. So we have to see, are we capable of, first we have to see whether this person needs receptivity, or does he need content, or does he require both? And then do we have the capacity to give it to them? So if they just need, if they have these questions, they're burning in them, and they just don't have the answers, and so they're going about doing whatever exploitation they're doing, then we just need to propose, give them that proposal, and they'll snatch it up. If they have the content around them, but they just don't have any receptivity to, understand it, take in, it's not become a question for them really, so that they can use the proposal, then we need to see whether we have the ability to make this a need in them, which is a pretty big ability to have, to inspire the need in someone who doesn't feel a need for something. And if they have neither content, nor neither information nor need, then we have to see whether we have the ability to provide both to them. So that's the qualification for convincing, and actually that's just education. The last one is compassion. Yeah.
So yeah, this is so. How can you help person understand? There is a qualification for that.
Yeah, I think that I guess that makes sense about communicating it to the person, building trust, and then putting a proposal. If they agree, they agree. If they don't, they are at one point going to die or something. So I think that's a comfort.
Let's not wait for them to die.
Yeah.
We try and try, but we maintain the relationships.
Yeah, I think so. Just a tangential thought. I don't know. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in a lot of other people also. What the other response, instead of building trust or something, is just to enforce a wall between that person and yourself and the people you care about, right? Yeah. Okay, you live your own world. I don't care. You are beyond hope, and I'm just waiting for you to, like, whatever.
No, this is in very good cases where you are able to tell this to each other. We are living in families where we don't say this, we don't even acknowledge this, but we behave like this. The walls are there without saying that there are walls there.
Yeah, I kind of, agree.
So, we have to start from where we are. There's no other place to start from, right? So the easiest path is focusing on yourself in the learning process. When you start learning and your conduct starts to evolve, it has an impact. Right now we don't have confidence in this fact. That is the key.
I agree with that as well. I don't think I'm very much convinced right now that is going to have an impact to the extent that you're saying in the other person.
Yes.
I think one thing to keep in mind is also who's the person who is being oppressed, as it were. Right? In journalism, there is this sort of common idea that it's a enterprise for justice, or as it's called, a crusading enterprise. But if you examine it, what's actually happening in mainstream media and journalism is that the common slogan is speak truth to power, right? So then you take the truth and you speak it to the powerful, but then you ignore the people who are powerless. And I think that one of the ideas that is part of this proposal, right, is that you have to look into the self. Often you find that people who are in power, sometimes they don't know what they're doing, but sometimes they do know what they're doing, and it is a sort of action of free will. But I think history has shown that it is a far more difficult enterprise to speak truth to the people who don't know it, who are at the receiving end, basically, of somebody else's oppression. And once you try and find success in that, where you get people who don't know what their real humanity is, if you begin to sort of elicit that within them, then they don't want to be oppressed. And actually, that is when I think people who are um, at the oppressor's end, that is when they feel most threatened, as it were. That is when it becomes most clear that what they're doing is wrong. Because even in the media, you find that it becomes somewhat of a rhetorical enterprise to just talk to people who are quote unquote doing the wrong thing, right? Who are uh, the cause of oppression, as it were, and not to really deal with people who are at the receiving end. But once you start dealing with people at the receiving end, I feel like um, so
This, whenever this go up, just twist this a little and then speak.
I'm done.
Okay? Done. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Sorry, just end with one thought. Then
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes? No, no.
Too much.
Go on.
I kind of agree because I mean I think the good idea about this is to keep the focus on myself and not just become, I don't know, operate out of God complex that I want to I don't know, uplift people out of oppression, or I don't know, this person is hurt or this person is bad or whatever, and I have to fight everyone. I think I mean keeping the focus on myself, I think that's the first thing to remind ourselves of. So yeah.
Basically, by empowering people to make their own decisions, then.
So if you are able to uplift yourself, maybe then you can help others uplift themselves. Because what you can do, you've proven that you can do this, then only can you help. Right? Yeah. Okay. So then we had gone on to these three fundamental facts and the related three fundamental questions. This led to us examining materialism and idealism in light of this, and then the consequences of this in terms of what is the lifestyle program and what is the social consequence of this, right? And with reference to this purposeless logic and logicless purpose, we had proposed coexistentialism, which is an alternative to these two. It is proposed as an alternative. Okay. And in this, we say that I am a human being, this world is harmonious coexistential order, and happy living is humane conduct. And the lifestyle is of resolution, prosperity, security, and coexistence. Now these words makes a little bit more sense, right? And this is the final aim, collaboration, unified society, and universal order. Universal order is this 10-tier system where everybody is participating through self-regulation, self-motivation, right? But to get to this, first we have to come to this. To come to this, we have to study these three things. This is where our content started, right? Next. But before we go into the content, whatever has happened, we must acknowledge that, right? So this part I had skipped earlier, but now we can mention this. So
I have a doubt.
yeah,
Like, I understood how the materialism led to the struggle and war, but how the idealism can lead to the struggle and war. I'm not able to connect
right.
the.
Go back. Take it. I think you were not there on this day, right? When this was. We talked about this in the class. What was the thing was, idealism. Go back to the definition of idealism. Yeah. God is the ultimate reality, right? This is the fundamental. Then God's creation is the existent. Whatever God's created, that is what you see around you. And what is governing everything? It is divine will. Right? All these three cannot be perceived through senses. In this, all these three can be perceived through senses. So, what can be perceived through senses is logical and reasonable. Right? This is beyond senses. There can't be any logic in this. Okay? So, idealism is not based on logic. Materialism is based on logic. Materialism has no common goal. So, it is purposeless. This has a common goal in terms of I mean, aligning yourself with God's divine will, right? Knowing it and then aligning it with divine will. But it doesn't have any logic to it, right? Now go back to the same. One more. Yeah. So here, this has got this logicless purpose. So here, what am I? I'm a soul, right? This is again a belief. You and I believe that I am an Atma or whatever is just a belief, no? We don't really know it, right? This world is an illusion. This is said. Is my child an illusion? Is my husband or my wife or my parents, are they an illusion? Right? But we believe this at times. Sansar to Maya hai, right? For people like you and me, normal people for whom Jivan Vidya is being proposed, the theory of idealism is just a set of belief called some sort of a faith. There are many types of faiths which are prevalent, right? So you belong to one, I belong to one, we all belong to some, come from tradition. And in faith, believing is the only thing. And the believing is never universal. What you believe God is and what I believe God is different. What you believe Atma is, what I believe Atma, there is difference. What you believe the world is, what I believe world is, they're different. So we perceive it differently. Right? So there are many schools of thought in this. Right? Like, what is God? Does it have form? Does it not have form? Sakar, Nirakar. Right? Form with form and formless. There are two schools. Then with the form, human form, non-human form. Right? Another school. Male, female, another school. Elderly, young, child, different schools. So like this, there are many divisions on this. And all these schools of thoughts have their own ways, their own processes to achieve this and to do this. They have their own ways of devotion, they have their own ways of renunciation. Some say give water to the sun, some say give chapati to the cow, some say do this, some say do that. And they all have different ways. And they all believe we know the best and others don't know anything. Right? When this happens, when we believe that our sect or group knows the best and the others don't know anything, but our voice, which is the right voice, needs to prevail amongst others, we try to recruit more people into our sect. Right? So the recruitment drive starts. For every sect, group, this is happening. And when everybody wants to recruit, there's going to be struggle, there's going to be conflict. Right? This is where we are. Okay? Next. So, coexistentialism was being proposed, and these are the three areas of study. Next. We were going on to the next. So, achievements of humankind through materialism. What is materialism given to the human kind? It is not totally useless. Right? This is what it has given. There is development and abundance of basic needs. There are many means of fulfilling our basic needs. Like many food items which are available. Imagine when humans were living in forest in initial stages. Food was such a scarcity, they didn't really realize what was food. But now we know how many ways we can fulfill this need. Right? Then higher needs related to resources and technology which led to human convenience. So how to move from one place to the other. We have developed technologies for that. How to communicate from one place to the other. We have developed technology. These are all gifts from materialism. These cannot be ignored. Next. This is again a contribution of materialism. Only through materialism, indirectly, this acceptance that education should be universal. Everybody should educate. Even though they wanted education so that everybody could work in factories, or industrialized education so that they can contribute. But education is a need for all human beings is now established. Anywhere we are, every human being feels my children should get education. Right? Yeah, any child on this planet should get education. This is a given now, which wasn't there. Say 50 years back or before that, this wasn't there. Universal access to education was not considered a right. Only some people in the community can get education. Only some people have the right to education. Okay? So this has come by this. Then progress in technical education. The education for making things, right? Doing things, for processing things. This has grown a lot. Right? Huh? Yeah. So this, because of this, a lot of things have become accessible to a lot of people. Right? Yeah. Another contribution is the breaking of social dogmas in favor of maximizing production. So for example, traditional communities were living with a lot of dogmas. Like in India, the caste system was there. Right? But to come to a city and work in some industry, in industry anybody who was ready to work would get a job. Right? Earlier, even today in villages you find you can't even eat together. You can't even sit together. But in cities, this has started happening. Right? So a lot of social dogmas have been broken because of the materialistic worldview. Rudivadita. Do you understand Rudivadita, the Hindi word? No. Use the mic and say, na, for everyone's benefit.
Like sanctify do's and don'ts in one way, ritualize do's and don'ts. Rigid. Yeah.
Rigidity in doings and not doings without understanding them. Yeah, cost system, so many things. Right? So, it has loosened these social dogmas to quite a bit, right? It's not eliminated it, but it has taken us in that direction. So this is the contribution of materialism. Next. The contributions of idealism. What has that given it to us? Superior goals, aspirations of universal welfare. This came out of idealism. Right? Enriched language, like omnipresent, justice, righteousness, truth. These are not even issues in materialistic worldview. These concepts are coming, the language and the concepts are coming from idealism. Okay? Righteousness, truth, unity, universality, compassion, benevolence, kindness, generosity, all these. Refined concepts of abstract domain. The abstract domain was dealt with in idealism, not in materialism. And human beings without the abstract are lost. They're not humans. And all this has contributed or encouraged humans to develop their intellectual and spiritual capacities.
So does the values come under the abstract domain?
Yeah. Abstract is those realities which can't be perceived through senses, which can be only be perceived through understanding. It is not that abstract can't be perceived. Abstract can be perceived, but not through senses, through understanding. Like for example, let's take an example, it will be clear. Do you eat food? Can you see the food? Yes. It has got form, you can see it, you can eat it. Food, the purpose of food is nutrition. Can you see nutrition? Does nutrition have any form? Think about it, right? Does nutrition, can you perceive it through senses? You have to understand it. Can you understand it? Yes. Is it a reality, nutrition? So, nutrition is abstract, food is tangible. Abstract and tangible coexist. When humans understand both the aspects, then we come into harmony with it. So when we intake food for the purpose of nutrition, then we come in harmony with food. That's the key message of this. Abstract and tangible coexist. And we have to identify both, not only one. Right? Yeah, next. Truth-seeking tendencies were respected. Truth means continuity. These, what is stable, what is continuous, what is permanent, what is omnipresent, these kind of tendencies in humankind came from idealism. Next. Knowledge becoming a topic of discussion. Not only technical expertise, but knowledge. What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? What is the causality of existence? All these questions were explored by idealism. Right? So these are the contributions of idealism. Next. What were the flaws? When we do the right evaluation, we should also see the shortcomings. Right? So what are the shortcomings? So dedication of education and technological advancements to business and war. The purpose of education and technical advancements is business and war. Business is exploitation, war is devastation. Devastation. They both are unwanted. This we recognize very well, but this we are yet to recognize fully, that this is damaging this planet. Basic principle of business is profit. Definition of profit is give less, take more. Exploitation. And then it went to more and more profit, maximizing profit. Give nothing and take everything. It is trending towards that. Giving is tending to zero and taking is tending to infinity. Right? Next. Accepting oppression, revolt, exploitation and war as legitimate means. These are all illegitimate means because they are inhuman. This is no way. Beating up somebody is not a way to deal with human beings. Right? हाँ जी. इसका मतलब है कि द्रोह, विद्रोह, शोषण और युद्ध को वैध माना, इसको विधि माना, है ना? Next. Accepting, cajoling people, bribing, threatening, guile, deceit, all these kind of things, right? As policy. इसको नीति माना, साम दाम दंड भेद, इसको glorify किया. We have glorified all these things. Bribing somebody, threatening somebody, cheating somebody, right? This has been glorified. And this is thought to be policy. Next. Pollution, climate imbalance, global warming as a result of environmental exploitation. This is the final flaw which is coming up because of this. Right? Next. Society becoming plagued with the profit mentality. Right? And because of this, all relationships are breaking down, because profit mentality is based on exploitation. So your profit, you can exploit your brother, your parent, your husband, your wife, anybody. And when that happens, you do get the means, but you lose the person. Is it happening around you or not? Education being plagued with extreme obsession for profit, consumption, and sex. This is all flaws of materialism. Right? Obsession with profit, obsession with consumption, and obsession with sex. I don't know. How big is the porn industry today? Must be in $1 trillion. Next. Inability to study and understand humans. This is the most fundamental flaw. The study of human beings could not take place with the help of materialism, on basis of materialism. That we have the conscious aspect as well as physical aspect, and both have separate needs which need to be fulfilled. There is a way of doing that. This could not be studied through this. Next.
Is it inability or is it no interest, like more focused towards their own profit?
No, since they don't acknowledge it, the conscious side, right? Because the fundamental assumption in materialism is that anything that comes within the range of senses, only that much is reality. So that enables you to look at the other side of reality. Yes, take the mic.
I mean, I don't know how much detail we need to go into it, but even in materialism, there was a need to understand humans because humans are resources. So if you don't know how, I mean, so much of psychology is focused on just understanding human behavior better so that we can maximize utilization of human potential. But yet we weren't able to, and so we keep bumping up across, against barriers, and we're not able to get people to be very as productive as we would like them to be, and so these systems have to be like manipulated again and again.
Okay. Yes, please.
So we were talking about business in that one. We also had 5 dimensions of socialization, education, health, production, trade, and justice.
Yeah.
So if we say that we are not doing business for profit, then are we going back to the barter system where the business or the trade would be just exchanging the goods that I produce?
Barter system isn't a method of exchange. Trade is also a method of exchange. Profiting is something else. Profiting is giving something of less value and taking something of more value. Right? Like in the hills, people used to grow fruits and nuts and stuff like that. And people from plains would come with salt, and for a little bit of salt, 1 kg, 2 kg, would take a lot of stuff down. The traders which used to come. The idea is to be fair. So fair trade. These words are used even today. Right? But with the exploitative nature and the power structures, these are very lopsided. Right? So we are talking about trading. Trading is exchanging, not to exploit. Fair exchange. But who will decide what is fair? So a knowledgeable person decides what is fair. And we encourage here everybody to become knowledgeable and then decide.
So I have just a tiny observation to make with respect to think one of the flaws in materialism is that people they have an inability to understand humans and so on and so forth. But I am not. I mean, inability, sure, but I do think that there is a need to understand humans and everyone, specifically for people who are, I don't know, materialistic or so on. I think those lead to two kind of responses. One is that they just keep pacifying that need through consumption of cheap pleasure or I don't know, cheap cultural goods or whatever. But you do see sometimes that people at one point in their lives, where they're just tired with their careers or something, they just like turn to idealism at one point, just turn to religion because they do have those questions, but they've been ignoring it for too long because I don't know, ambition, career, whatever. So it's not. I mean, it might be an inability, but I do think that there is an inherent need in everyone to kind of just answer those questions.
So humans have the need, but these isms are ideologies. The structures of their logic and their fundamentals doesn't allow the space for that. That is what we are talking about. Humans have always felt the need, right? And not only for materialism, for idealism. In fact, if you look at ourselves today, when we are thinking, we are idealists. And when we are living, we are materialists. When we think what all we can do, we think big, big things. This should happen, that should be perfect, this should be perfect. But when actually it is time to live, yeah, this is costing me too much money. This is too discomforting. Right? So this contradiction is in us, even today.
Yeah, I agree, but and I think just one more point is that when we've lived our life through materialistic means and then we fall to idealism or something, or fall for it while we were living a materialistic life, it kind of produces a dissonance in our mind, right? Where we're believing something, we're doing something else, and then by the end of the day, we're just confused. That, and also I think one more thing is that people kind of fall for idealism so much, or religion or ideologies, is because their answers are so complete and they kind of answer everything in the world, is that you don't have to sit down and think about each thing particularly, right? Because I mean, here we are thinking about Jivan atoms to a lot of other things, and there are a lot of other answered questions and so on. But I don't know, with ideology, it's just too easy. It's kind of envious the amount of completeness ideologies provide to people and questions they have.
So the message here is, even this could be something similar. You have to examine it yourself. That's the message. Whether you're examining materialism, like this is my analysis which I'm giving, yeah, or Madhyas Darshan or Nagaraji's analysis, right? We don't have to take it on its face value. We must examine it. If it is true, then only accept it, right? Okay. Okay. Next, flaws in.
I also want to ask a question. Yesterday you gave an example of a rice.
Of?
Rice.
Yes, yes.
In 2008, price of a rice of 1 kg is rupees 8 per kg.
Yeah.
But in the next 10 to 15 years, the rise of the price of 1 kg is rupees 80 or 100.
You're talking about retail price. I was talking
Yes.
about wholesale price.
I want to
But
asking a question.
what the question is?
In the next future year, in the next 10 to 15 years, the rise of the price is 1 kg near about 800. Then how we can stop this inflation for the human conduct or social?
Yeah. So the inflation is because profiteering needs this kind of mechanism, because there is no fair exchange. See, rice was priced at say 1 rupee at one time, 10 rupees at the other time, 100 rupees. This is price. Then there is the concept of value. How much rice do you eat every day? Suppose you were to say 100 grams, 200 grams, 500 grams, right? Say 100 grams you eat every day. And 100 grams of rice provides certain nutrition to you, right? Suppose there was a person like you about 1000 years back, and if that person ate 100 grams of rice, would the nutrition that was provided to her, would be about the same as it is provided to you, or would it be different? How? So that person might eat maybe 200 grams, but the nutrition in 100 grams would be the same, but her need is more, so she will eat 200 grams, right? So the value of rice is in nutrition it provides, which is constant, which is universal. Rice provides nutrition, and this is the nutrition which rice provides. But how we deal with it in human society is not only on the basis of value, but on basis of price. Now the price 1000 years back would not be even 1 paisa, and today is say 80 rupees, and tomorrow it could be 800 rupees. So price is manipulated. Why is that manipulation coming? Because we want to profit, right? And the profit structure is like that. The exploitation takes place at the ground level and the other level. So there's a pyramid of it. And all the wealth moves from the ground to bottom up in the hands of few. Inflation is designed into this system to exploit. Right? The value of farmers' work is the same. Value of teachers' work is the same as it was, say, 50 years back. You have to work for, say, 3 weeks before you can sow a crop, right? Even that time, 50 years back, they had to do the same work. Today also they have to do the same work, right? But say somebody went to office, they also had to do the same work. They could do certain amount of work in 8 hours. They can do the same. But the salaries and the earnings the farmer is getting and that person there's a vast difference. The salaries are growing at an exponential scale right now, and the farmer's worth is not growing at the same scale. So there is income disparity. The labor rates are not growing at the same rate. So it is more and more exploitation of the lowest in economics, and accumulating that slowly along the pyramid and in the hands of few. And we all are participating and helping push this money up. Le lo, sab le lo. That is where the inflation comes from. The values are not changing. Understanding. एक ही रास्ता है. First we have to understand ourselves. Then within our friends and family, right? Then start practicing things which we can practice within a family. We can start things we need to practice with other families. We wait till they become aware, so we encourage them to study this. Once we are surrounded by families which understand this, they want to live like this, then we can start doing certain more things. Like, for example, we all were doing some production or services. We could always establish a level of understanding, okay, this is valued this much, this is valued this much effort has gone into this. So I put in 10 hours of effort in making this, you have put in 1 hour effort of making this. So maybe I can take 10 of this and you can take 1 of this. Something like that we could work out. These mechanisms of exchange will evolve with time, but the spirit can come right now. I can be useful, I can produce something, you can be useful, and we can exchange. Right? When I want to, I'll tell you one example. My friend Praveen, my batchmate from IIT, they were living on a farm in Bhopal. And they were growing this, what we call arhar or tuar. It's a kind of lentil, right? Eaten in a lot of central India and South India. So they were growing that. And we like that. We wanted that. And we had just started farming in Roorkee, and we were growing rice, the same rice, right? So we wanted to exchange. You send us the dal and we'll send you the rice, right? So how much should I send them? There were 2 people and some guests were coming to them. We did a calculation in our head. They will need this much. And we could afford to send something, so we sent them. They did something and they tried to be over generous. This should cover the cost of what Ashok is saying. Right? So when if the tendency is there to give, then you don't give less, then you want to give more. It should be more than what is owed to me. That is human exchange. So you become generous. That exchange system is very different from this.
Also, it's with objects, right? Not
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And you can really sense prosperity with objects in hand. I think that also connects to right utilization is protection also.
Right. Like yesterday we were talking about, the cost of the rice was 32,000 rupees, nothing. But 40 families for whole year can eat rice. That is such a big thing, no? Okay?
I was also saying something like that only. At the moment, what can we do? We can just recognize the value of the things around us. What is their actual usefulness? The clothes we are wearing, the furniture we are buying, with the fixtures, the food, um, the travel, transport, everything. What is the actual usefulness or the value of that? That will also make our needs definite.
Yes. When we start focusing on the value rather than price, then the needs become much more clearer. We need good nutritious food. The value of food is in good nutrition, right? Not in its price. It can be priced anything. Anyway, coming back to this and seeing at the pace we are going, afternoon session is going to be like this only. Then you'll have to do your presentation later. I want to go through this, okay? So, the flaws in human tradition, idealism, the flaws in idealism. Propagation of imperceptible, inexpressible truth. It was believed that truth can't be told. It can't be perceived, nor can it be told. It is there, but it can't be perceived, and nor it can be told or expressed. Next. Propagation of mysticism as knowledge. Consequently, education, conduct, social systems, constitutions were based in unverified beliefs. The religious constitutions which came out of these were based or rooted in unverified beliefs. Next. Mutual differences between various religions, sects, and schools of thought, leading to social divisions and communality that we have already talked about. Right? Society plagued by dogmas. Because this was a belief system, so lot of dogmas. Education becoming a class privilege. This was part of the idealistic worldview. Last, this is common with materialism. The study of human beings could not be completed in this, on basis of this. So humans couldn't be understood. Therefore, humanness cannot be protected on basis of this. Study of humans leads us to realize humanness. Both are needed. So these are the flaws in the traditional, well-established ideology. Yes, please.
Idealism also includes the renunciation, which means that we are not considering the coexistence with the other humans and nature.
Yeah. So do we have responsibility towards nature? Do we have responsibility towards our family, to our community? As we talked earlier, from the birth till death, we are consuming resources from which we receive from society. So we have a responsibility towards that. We are taking something, we have to give back something. So if you renounce everything, but you have taken so much, First fulfill that part, then renounce it. Anyway, over? Okay. So this we have talked about in the earlier thing, that at individual level there is confusion, clarity or resolution that we talked about, family, strife, prosperity. This is the current state and there's a proposed state. Right? Society fearful, mutual trust. Nature towards imbalance, harmony. Next. And on basis of all this, there is an appeal. All of you can read it? Open it fully. One more. Now that you've heard this thing, now you'll be able to understand this appeal. Okay? Any questions? Any clarifications? So this, it is in this sense that this is being presented to you. And with that background. If one still sees hope in materialistic ways or idealistic ways, there is no problem. Please continue. That's okay. For those who don't see any hope in that, they may consider this. Okay?
I just want to say something. So, I mean, as a collective, like the whole human race collective, I think, yeah, I agree with the statement that it has yet been impossible for humankind to live harmoniously. But I mean, I somewhere in my mind, there's this belief that there is, I don't know, there are maybe 2 people on this planet who have been able to live it. So, what I'm trying to say is this statement is true for a collective, but there might be considerable differences within that collective. There are people who have been able to live. So because I can never verify that, right? That do all humans on this planet since the beginning of time have been able to not live with each other?
For that, I'll just have a very simple logic. Like, suppose we as a family, 4 of us, settle down somewhere and arrange for our production, and we ensure that whatever we need from the community we get, and we are living very happily. But around us, people are in imbalance. Can we sustain this? If around us people are deprived of things, can we sustain this balance which we think is there?
I mean,
maintain it into small area of our influence where people are like that. And the only option is, that does give some joy, no doubt. But the only option is to expand that, because I can't live limited only into that. We are connected. That's the main thing.
I think not only do we face the consequences of what's happening around us, but we also bear witness, and it troubles us.
Yeah.
I mean, even if us, we're far from realized, far from harmonious, it still troubles us when we look at it.
Yeah.
So what about people who are supposedly living in harmony?
This is another aspect of humankind, humanness. The few kids in Thailand who got stuck in the cave. I mean, there's just bodily danger, but all over the globe, people were worried about them. We are not unaffected.
Yeah, I was also going to say it's generational too. Even if I only care about my family, can I imagine that my family for generations to come will flourish? If everything around them is falling apart over time, obviously it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So, maybe for the next 5 years, I could put myself in a bubble and kind of believe that everything's okay. But obviously, that's not. It doesn't have any long duration. It's not sustainable.
Okay. Next. So this we did understanding Jivan, right? Next. Study of humans. Humans are a unit of knowledge or not. Look at each and every statement. Do you get some sense of meaning from them? Go. Put the full slide. We have done this initially when we were understanding. Now just review this. Is there anything which doesn't fit, doesn't make sense, doesn't align, doesn't communicate to you? Okay? Good? Shall we move ahead? Next. Okay? Shall we move ahead? Next. Some things will seem acceptable right now, at this moment. Some things you will have to discover along the journey. Right? But how this immortality is connected with the whole thing. Right? The immortality, what does it mean? We talked about that any physical structure is basically a coordinated motion of its components. Right? And there is a structure at atomic level where it has become perfect, or it has achieved perfection, that now it will not change. And this is what we are calling immortality. Now due to this, its physical and chemical properties disappear. Disappear in the sense they metamorphose. They evolve to another level. They become conscious properties. Right? So where does consciousness come about? This is addressed in this way. All the magnetism, all the heat, all the electricity which is then atom is expending. Now the structurally perfect atom doesn't expend anything out of it. All that energy is within, and this energy is now expressed in conscious energy. How does that happen? Why does it happen? For this you'll have to come for a further advanced study. We can explore it in that time. Okay. Where is consciousness? How it comes about? Right? That is answered. Okay. Next. Then we did Jivan and body. Okay. Next. Yes. I can't hear you. Say that again.
Can you just repeat the subtle and gross part?
Right, right. So, gross, what we are calling gross here is things which can be perceived through senses. At the level, like at this day-to-day level, we can see trees and birds and everything. These can be. And we look at trees, we can see they are made of leaves. This also we can perceive. And when we look at leaves, we can see there are small veins in it. The green color patch network of small patches in it. All that we can perceive. Then we use instruments also sometimes. We take a microscope or a lens to look at closely. This all is gross. So whatever that can be perceived through senses or instruments comes in the gross. And body's senses are impacted by the gross. Right? But things which are smaller than this, so things which are more fundamental than this, they can't be perceived through senses. For that you need understanding. Like even today, science has not seen atoms. They are just understanding them in a certain manner and projecting models. Right. For example, Big Bang nobody has seen. It's a model of universe. Right? We're trying to perceive it through understanding. Right? So what is only perceived through understanding is called subtle, which is beyond the range of senses. That's the definition. What is within the range of senses is gross. Yeah.
Atoms are subtle and beyond atoms are gross.
Yeah. So atomic states and what is happening at that level, that's all subtle. And the mega structures made up of atom, molecule and larger molecules, RNA, DNA, cells and structures made with biological cells and things like that, this is all gross.
I was just
So nutrition, when we are talking about, now you're going into that abstract and tangible, right? So, yeah, nutrition, when we are talking about, this is a slightly different issue, tangible and abstract, intangible, right? This is the governing principle. What we are calling intangible is the governing principles. Every entity is an activity which is governed by some principles. We talked about natural law, natural regulation, natural. So that governing principle, food is governed by the principle of nutrition for humans. And when we are looking at some object from the angle of food, then the way to understand it is if we keep in mind the principle of nutrition. Then we can understand food. Right? So, but here it is, when we are talking about gross and subtle, we are talking in terms of reality. There is certain reality which is beyond senses. There is certain reality because its size is so small, therefore it's beyond senses. And certain reality which you can perceive through senses. Like that. But both these realities are governed by some governing principle which have to be understood again. Right? They are totally intangible. Yeah. Time? Yeah.
The thoughts and hope seem to be a material process because they rely on memory. And it seems like you can't have memory without the brain or without material. I mean, even that isn't fully understood yet, but a lot of experiments seem to imply that there would be no memory without the brain. So does I could see thoughts and hope as being an activity of Jivan, if you like, an activity of consciousness, but actually it doesn't seem to be an ability of.
Okay. Yeah, very good point. In fact, all these three which I've used here they function, I mean, their principal states are in Jivan, as in abilities, as in activities, they are in Jivan, but when they have to be used as human beings, the brain has to function with them. So there is a component of brain in this, right? So when meditation is done and when they talk about a state where there is no thought, the state of thoughtlessness, it's actually separation of body and the conscious. When the body is not associated, this will go zero. This will go blank. All three. No desires, no thoughts, no hope. These three come about in association. These are function of those 4.5 activities that we talked about. So 4.5 activities needed for running the body, for living as a body. That's what they are. Yeah. Okay.
It's really interesting actually when you go about studying which parts of the brain are exactly responsible, the detailed study of the parts of the brain responsible for different types of thoughts and desires and memory and all these things. We can identify the parts that are associated with these functions, but how it's happening in them, that's still unknown. So I see it like, hardware. It's the hardware that we need to, kind of exhibit it or access it in one way, I don't know. But the actual doer, the user is the Jivan.
And also with that, it has been observed that suppose somebody like one of our uncles had a brain surgery. He had a brain tumor, so he had a brain surgery. And because some part of his brain was taken out, for a certain point of time, the brain was not doing those functions. But slowly over time and through practice, he was able to do those functions. Not as efficiently as he was doing it earlier, but to a very good extent he was able to do them. So one could also interpret it as the brain adapting to it, and now the other parts have started doing that function. But it can also be interpreted as that there is something where this function is actually existing and it utilizes some parts, and when that part is not available, then it compensates through using some other part. That is the kind of thing. But these are all areas for exploration further. This is right now hypothesis for all of you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing actually, that actually like this line almost seems like the between desire and thought and sensory and motor.
Yeah.
Like the brain is the kind of the organ that kind of where that translates, because actually whatever desire, like sensory motor thing comes from desire, hope, and whatever.
Yeah.
Like you decide something and then you translate it, right? So the brain just seems like the connecting thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other thing I want to say, like, I mean, I also don't know about the Jivan thing at all, but even logically, it seems like it would make sense that if, like, at least science has also discovered that all matter is permanent. It just keeps changing its state.
Yeah.
It keeps changing its state. So if it was that something has finished changing its state, because everything else is also immortal in that sense, it just changes its state,
Right.
but it lasts forever.
Yeah.
So when something has finished changing its state, then it would stay in that state forever. So I think even as a logical kind of
Very good
thing, it kind of makes sense.
Very good point. The excellent point that all matter is actually permanent. And what is changing is its state of being or state of organization. So there is a possibility that there can be a state of organization which is changeless. That's all is immortality. Very good. Also, I would like to add here about the brain. Though we didn't talk about the brain in this, because it's an introductory workshop, we can only talk that much. How brain is the conduit between Jivan and the body. This we talk about in the actual, when we study this, there's some portion of this, how the Jivan sends the signal, because it cannot interact with physically, but brain is the only organ with which it can work, and how it works with it, how it gives its signal, and how the signal is received, and how the senses interact with it. Some discussion is there available on that. We can talk about something. It's an interface. It basically joins the Jivan, which is the conscious bit, and joins the body, which is the physical thing. So it can accept signals and give signals to the Jivan and body both. Okay? So I think because we need to finish this, and the presentation won't take too much time, because now we have four people, you'll add and you'll do it in quickly. And so let's meet at 3 o'clock, because I want to go through this once, because once you go through, you connect it much better. Because the first time we were going through, there were many doubts, our attention was there or not. But now that we have heard the whole thing, going through it once again will really help you. So let's come back at 3, right? Thank you.